Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming today to our Zoom presentation for the month of November. Our topic today is Ask TLC, a season for self-care and connection. I'm Bonnie Hovel, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a volunteer for TLC. And of course, it is the season, and some of us have gone through some holidays already, like Hanukkah, and Thanksgiving is right around the corner. And then we have Christmas and Kwanzaa and New Year's. So all of these holidays we've either just gone through or we're about to go through is the reason we wanted to have something about the season and how do we take care of ourselves and connect with others in the season. What feelings do the holidays bring? Well, it really can depend. It depends on how things are going in your life. What is your story? What have you experienced? Are you a caregiver? Are you feeling stressed? And then just things like, do you feel like part of your community? Are you new here or do you feel lonely? And sometimes people feel lonely even if they're not single or living alone. Have you recently suffered a loss? Or maybe it can depend on if your loved ones are nearby or far away. There's so many questions we have to ask to know what feelings the holiday will bring for us. And we may all be in a little different space there. But we want to talk a little bit about, so what do we do? Let's say your situation in life at this moment is not very stable, or that you won't have your loved ones with you. How can you shift the lens? Holidays don't have to follow all the old traditions and be exactly the same as they always have been to be meaningful. Sometimes our dissatisfaction could come from thinking everything has to stay the same. Or it might come from having really high expectations, our own and others, about how much we need to do, how much we need to have, how much we need to entertain. We have all these expectations in our own heads, and they're in our society too. So we just need to ask ourselves, could we create new rituals? Could we focus more on our personal well-being and find some connections in new ways? Self-care, you hear about self-care, and it's interesting because it doesn't mean selfish or being selfish. And, in my generation, I imagine, and many of us here today are from that generation where being selfish was discouraged. It was not a good thing. And now we have to rethink, what does it mean when we're caring for ourselves? It's not selfish, it's necessary. And it keeps us resilient. And resilience helps us adapt well to adversity or trauma, helps us bounce back from difficult experiences and have a positive outlook. So here's some of the ways right here in this diagram. Self-care can be as simple as asking for help, spending time alone, putting yourself first, asking for what you need, staying at home, saying no, maybe saying yes, depending on your situation. Forgiving yourself. We forgive others. We think about forgiving others, but sometimes we don't realize we ourselves might need to forgive ourselves. If we feel guilty about something or bad about something that maybe we couldn't control it even. Taking a step back is important too. And another one is setting boundaries, you see at the bottom of this chart. Setting boundaries can be important because we might have to say, I'm not feeling like I can do that at this time. And that's okay. It's okay to say where we are and what we need at the moment. So permit yourself to feel what you feel. We don't owe the holidays cheerfulness. We can let the season be exactly what it is for us this year. And, it's okay if it's quieter or slower, softer or smaller. Put away the pressure to keep up traditions or be festive. You don't have to force that. You can redefine what the holidays will look like for you at this time in your life. What is enough? What is too much? Knowing yourself is an important part of this. You can create one gentle ritual of comfort. Pick a small ritual that brings steadiness rather than strain. As I go over some of these things, you might make a note of which ones strike you as something that you could enjoy. Maybe you haven't thought of doing it. And you can take a little Post-it note and write a few things down on it and put it on your refrigerator or on your computer of 3 things that you want to do during the day that bring you comfort. And here's a few ideas. Play a song that comforts you or lifts your mood. Listen to holiday music. If you have an Alexa, you can say, Alexa, please play holiday music. And you can even say instrumental, classical holiday music, or whatever you like. You could write a short note to someone you miss. You could take a morning walk each day of the holiday week. And when you take a walk, it kind of expands your mind. It takes you out of the area you're used to being, like your home. And if you're home alone a lot, it takes you away from that, and you can look around and see the blue sky. It's kind of chilly right now, but hopefully we'll get some warm weather back and you'll feel like walking. You can have a favorite warm drink while watching the sunrise or the sunset. Meditate or pray or just quietly reflect. A ritual doesn't fix grief. If grief is one of the things you're experiencing, or fix exhaustion, but it gives you a moment of grounding. It just helps you breathe easier. I have a widowed friend, and what she says, it's okay to give yourself permission to take things slowly and quietly versus joining the happy throng. So if you feel that pressure, but that isn't really where you are this year, that's okay. And if you're grieving, it's good to make space for both missing your loved one and remembering. And you can choose a way to honor your loved one. It could be something like lighting a candle, hanging an ornament, cooking their favorite dish, or sharing a story with someone you know who understands what you've been through and understands your loss. Tell yourself that joy and sadness can coexist. You don't have to choose one or the other. And then set boundaries and attend only what feels manageable. Like if there are a lot of holiday things going on in your neighborhood or with your family and friends, you could choose a few or choose something quieter if you don't feel like being in a larger crowd. And for some of you, if you're spending your first holiday alone due to a loss, it might be challenging to know how to handle the pressure, to join family members, to travel to see them or to host them at your home, or to join friends or neighbors in various gatherings. And, here's a way you could try saying it. While I welcome and appreciate your love and including me, I don't feel up to it this year. Just a simple statement like that can help them understand. If you're a caregiver, you can simplify down to the essentials. So the idea is you don't need to create a perfect holiday. You may need to have rest and support versus the perfect holiday. And you're not required to decorate or not to decorate the whole house in the same way you may have done in the past. You could try just something smaller, like a little centerpiece that helps you acknowledge the holiday without necessarily doing a huge thing. You can choose the easiest version of everything. You can have store-bought food, smaller gifts, no wrapping, or you might choose to skip an activity entirely. And another thing you could do is ask someone to cover caregiving for you for one afternoon. So you can do something you might need to do, even take a nap, go for a walk. And then you can let others know we're keeping things simple this year. And most people will understand that simple statement. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but we're keeping things simple. Online holiday concerts are really nice too. There are things like PBS has the Tabernacle Choir on December 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then they replay those things too. And there's a program I saw last year, and they're doing it again this year. It's called All About Decorating the White House. It's amazing because they'll bring in all these things, put up all these decorations, and if you just sit and watch that, sometimes it helps you feel more of the spirit. These things are available on, like the White House one is on HGTV on December 14th. You can redesign the holidays to fit your energy. Sometimes the old traditions don't match your new reality. So you can try things like a quiet holiday with a good meal and a cozy movie. A day trip somewhere you can appreciate natural surroundings instead of a big gathering. Or a service-oriented holiday, donating items, writing cards, or volunteering. You could do creative things like puzzles or art or writing or playing music. And so it's okay to make the season what you need it to be. If you used to be someone who fixed big meals for people and entertained big groups, you could try something smaller, like inviting a friend to meet you somewhere for coffee, invite someone over for lunch, take cookies to a neighbor you know might be all alone. That might help you feel more like you're participating in the holiday. So the title of this presentation has to do with self-care and connections. And you know, it's so important for us to be with other people. And it's harder for some of us if we're more introverted. But one of the very best ways to stay mentally healthy and enjoy the holidays or any other time of life is to be genuinely connected to others. And I had mentioned before that it's not just single people who feel lonely. Sometimes people feel lonely or disconnected even when they're around other people. So in that case, you can work on your relationship with yourself, working to increase your knowledge of what it is you need from others. And sometimes counseling or therapy can help you with that. But if we take the responsibility to know more about what we need ourselves, then we can grow and feel less lonely. We all have gaps in the perfect mental health. And if we seek connection and reach out and realize that being a little bit vulnerable sometimes is the answer, like if somebody can't know you very well and you never express anything about yourself that's more personal, then it's harder for them to connect with you. So sometimes we put up walls, and it's better if we can learn how to bring down the walls a little bit. You know, about half of people over 75 live alone. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men. And while there's some interesting things about it, if you all got the AARP news bulletin, they have a whole section in there this month about living alone and how people do when they live alone. And they say they're actually pretty healthy and pretty cognitively aware, socially connected, but they're more vulnerable if something goes wrong because they don't often have the support system around them that they would if they lived with somebody else. But 62% of them say they get the most joy from spending time with friends. So it's just an important thing to make sure you nurture in your life. If you've moved and feel disconnected, you can start by building micro connections. So you don't need an instant social circle, but you can start with tiny, low pressure steps, like saying hello to a neighbor. Being an initiator can be important in that situation because it's easy to be overlooked if you're super quiet and never say anything to anybody. I have an introverted friend who suggested this. She says, here's a simple thing that I like to do. And she said she puts a pin on, like a holiday pin. And she said, you'd be surprised how many people will comment on it, and that will start the conversation. So attend the local activities where talking is optional. If you're not a really outgoing person, you could go to a concert or a craft fair or a library program even. Or join a group that has regular meetings. And that's where you start developing friendships because you have something in common with other people, like a book club or a walking group, a faith community, or a rec center activity. We're so lucky here in the villages to have all the activities available that we could imagine. And in the process of starting to meet people, keep expectations low. Aim for being familiar to begin with. If you expect an instant friendship, that's really hard to have happen and pretty rare. And if you belong to a group already, you could invite somebody that you like or care about in the group and invite them to go somewhere. It might be somebody in your pickleball group or somebody you golf with, or in a craft group or a volunteer group. And if you just go together to a concert or something, then you start getting to know each other a little better. I recently did that. I attended a play with one of our TLC volunteers I didn't know very well, and it was really fun to get to know her better. Connect with one safe person. So if you don't have lots of friends, it's sometimes easier just to find someone that you find easy to be with. It could be a friend, a neighbor, a faith leader, a grief group peer, if you're in a grief group, or a support group or online community can sometimes do that. If you can see people on the screen, just like we're doing here on our Zoom, that can be helpful just to see other people and talk with them. One warm connection is really more healing than many shallow connections. So giving back really brings benefits to people. And as we all know, there are so many volunteer opportunities around. And we can just do little acts of kindness. We can just be neighborly, being neighborly, a smile, a compliment. This same introverted friend that I have, after losing her spouse, she commented that when she took a little walk in the neighborhood, even if somebody just smiled at her or said hello or treated her with kindness, she felt so much less alone. It was more important than anyone realized to her at that time. You can also connect virtually, as I mentioned before, with support groups or storytelling. There are these websites you can see here, meetup.com or storynet.org, where people tell stories, and you can hear their stories, you can tell your stories. And there's a worldwide virtual storytelling guild. And speaking of storytelling, we therapists know that listening to someone can be the very biggest gift of all, because people like to tell their stories. And when they do, you can practice just taking it in and asking them questions. Be curious. Ask them questions like, how did that make you feel at that time? What feelings come up while you're sharing this? Have you shared this with other people? And when you do that, you just draw out a little more and you get a little deeper in the story. Finding joy in simple pleasures. Slow down and pay attention. Joy really lives in the ordinary moments. And it can be things as simple as the sunshine on your face, birds singing in the morning. That's one of my favorite things, is to sit on the lanai and listen to the birds. They can get pretty loud and it's just a peaceful thing to do. Fresh air, flowers, a gentle breeze, watching a sunset, a cup of coffee or tea, cozy blanket or a comfy chair. This doesn't have to be anything very complicated, but we can find joy in very small things. Savoring a delicious meal, and one way to do that, here's a suggestion. We often will just quickly eat, but if we slow down, try something like using your non-dominant hand to eat. Now that will slow you down and you can be more aware of the taste and appreciate and savor every bite. That really forces you to slow down. Or chew longer. Try chewing 10 or 20 times before you swallow something. That makes you really stop and think and feel and taste what you're doing. A hug can be a joyful thing. Sharing a laugh, one of my favorite things. Having a meaningful conversation. And you can invite more joy in these ways. You can think of joy as a friend and invite it in. You can be an observer. If you don't feel like joining in on everything, you can just observe. Be present in the moment. Look for beauty in the ordinary. Celebrate small things and keep a simple joy list. If you have a little journal or notebook, you can just write down, what are the things that I find joy in? It doesn't have to be capital joy, huge happiness. It can be just a little joy. My introverted friend that I keep talking about, she doesn't like being in large crowds. So what she does is she'll get in her golf cart, drive to the square, drive around by the waterfront. She'll go at the time when they're doing music, and she might stop and listen to a couple of songs. She'll see people dancing in the square, and it just gives her a feel for what's going on without having to join in completely. So it's not about having more, it's about noticing more. Being observant is a real gift. You can create a small joy plan. Now, this doesn't mean forced joy, but authentic joy. And you can just pick 2 or 3 things that genuinely feel good, like maybe you like driving around to look at the lights, baking something simple, reading a holiday story you love. Read it to yourself, or if you have a grandchild, you could read it to. That would be good. Sometimes you can even do that on FaceTime and connect with that child. Send a handwritten card to someone who matters. Or here's a way you can do it. I have a friend who does a holiday phone call. So instead of sending that 1-page or 2-page newsletter out to somebody, you might give them a call and talk with them. And that way you have a 2-way conversation going. You can have that cup of coffee with them virtually. You could buy yourself a small treat or a comfort item. Yeah, the focus here should be on things that soothe rather than things that overwhelm. You can practice the minimum holiday. Ask yourself, what's the least I need to do to feel grounded and okay during the holiday season? And then once you find that thing and figure it out, let that be enough. Make space for hope without forcing it. Hope is so important. Tell yourself, this is one season. Things can shift in future years. My reality doesn't always have to stay stuck in this one place where I am now. It will evolve, it will grow. And you're not failing if this year feels hard. You're adapting, you're healing, you're surviving, and that really counts. The holidays can hold comfort, meaning, and joy, even when they differ from holidays in your past. These are the things to remember, these three things. You can find joy in the simplest of pleasures. You'll never feel deprived. Tiny delights rather than big bright lights. And I'd like to leave you with the idea to write down one self-care idea and one idea to connect with others or somebody else to try this season.